Dragon Ball Sparking Zero may have just gotten a massive, and I mean massive, leak. Now the reason I put massive leak in quotations like that is because first and foremost, when you think of leak, you don't think of what we're actually going to be covering in this video. And then secondly, this is definitely something you want to take with a grain of salt, because by no means is there any way to confirm or say that this is coming from a reliable source or anything along those lines. It very well may end up being a mistake on Xbox's part. But my boys, if it is not, this leak right here, which we're about to take a look at in a second, would be absolutely mind-blowing for the potential of what Sparking Zero actually could be and could hold for us in terms of content for that game. Now I want to give a shout out to the homie Trenton Connell, because he was the one who actually was able to find this. Like, if you go to the Xbox marketplace right now and take a look at this, it's actually not there. So they have taken it down, which does mean one of two things. One, they don't want people to know about it this early on before the game even has a release date or anything like that. Or two, it could also have been a mistake, which is why I say you want to take this leak in particularly with a grain of salt, without a doubt. But again, the potential of what this could mean would be insane. So let's take a look at what the homie put out there, because he has a video showing how big of a size, or how big in size, this game actually could be, again, if this does end up being true. Now on the Xbox marketplace, you see size for this device about 77.8 gigabytes. Essentially 78 gigabytes could be the size of Sparking Zero. Now again, take this with a grain of salt, without a doubt, but let's just say that the game does end up being that massive. And the reason I'm saying massive is because for an anime game, that is absolutely huge. I know when you compare it to some other games like your CODs, you know, some of your battle royales, maybe like Apex, Fortnite or something like that. I don't know exactly how big those are at the moment in terms of space, but I know all the CODs that have recently come out have all been massive in terms of gigs. Like, we're talking like 100+ type stuff with those games, right? Well, this for an anime game usually never happens. Even the newest anime game that just released in Naruto Storm Connections, when you take a look at the Xbox Series X/S version of that game, it's only 38.5 gigabytes, meaning that Sparking Zero would potentially be double in terms of size compared to Storm Connections. Now, Storm Connections has a ton of characters within that game, has a ton of maps. It may not have the most like modes or anything along those lines, but it still has a fairly decent amount of content overall when you take into account the characters, all the maps, and all the other stuff that does go into that game. But then let's take a look at some other Dragon Ball games, right? Fighters, for example. This is a game that is only 7.3 gigabytes, and that's including DLC. Like, I don't have all the DLC on Xbox with this screenshot that you guys are seeing, but I do have most of it. I would say like 75% of the DLC I do own, and it's still only 7.3 gigabytes. Well, then let's take a look at Xenoverse 2, because Xenoverse 2, if we're being honest, is the biggest Dragon Ball game we've ever seen in terms of content. There's no other Dragon Ball game out there in terms of like console-based stuff. Even when it comes to mobile, I wouldn't say there's no Dragon Ball game that offers more content. Yes, mobile may have like more units and stuff like that, but in terms of just things to do, there is no game that compares to Xenoverse 2 overall, because this is a game that has parallel quest, expert missions, crystal raid bosses, you got your story mode, you got PvP, you got Hero Coliseum. What else am I missing? You got photo mode that's in the game. What else? I feel like I'm still missing stuff, and that's 8 different things right there alone. And I still feel like I'm missing some things when it comes to Xenoverse 2. But then you also have a massive roster with Xenoverse 2. You have a massive lobby in that game at the same time. You have CACs and all the stuff that goes into the CACs. And that game right there is only like 27 gigabytes right now, and that's including every single DLC pack. If you talk about just base game for Xenoverse 2, it's actually only 20 gigabytes. So that is why this right here, if it does end up being true, would absolutely be a massive leak without a doubt, because the size of the game would be massive, which would mean a lot of content going into this game. Now, one thing you do have to account in terms of the differences between Xenoverse 2 and Fighters compared to this is those games are not next gen, right? Storm Connections, I did look at the next gen version because next gen versions usually do take up more space. It's just, I mean, higher graphics, higher quality, all things like that. That does lead to more memory. But that game still is only basically 39 gigabytes. Again, this game right here could potentially be 78. That's double the size of Storm Connections. So the amount of possible content for this game, if this is true, would be insane. Like just modes, characters, things to do in the game, all stuff like that. Maybe even a lobby system when it comes to online play could very well be possible for Sparking Zero. Again, if this is the actual size of the game. Now, like I said before, you definitely want to take it with a grain of salt because, for one, it is kind of early to see the actual size of the game, and two, they did take it down from the Xbox marketplace as well. Like I said before, that could be either because they don't want people to see how big the game actually is. Usually you don't get insight to how big the game is until it's like a month or two away from actually releasing, and also it could be just because it was wrong. Like this, there is a very, I wouldn't say strong, but there is a possibility that this is not the actual size and it just was a mistake made by Xbox on the Xbox marketplace when you go look at Sparking Zero. Because right now, again, if you take a look at this screenshot, it no longer is there. It says the size for this device and there is no size at all. There's nothing listed if you were to go look at the Xbox marketplace at this point in time. So again, this could be absolutely insane if it does end up being true, and something I felt worth sharing with you guys, because if it is true, that just shows how big of a project this game truly is and would make sense as to why, you know, the game has been in development supposedly for 5 years at this moment in time. 5 years would equal a fairly large game without a doubt, and considering it is next gen exclusive, that would make sense as to why it could be 78 total gigabytes on release. And you also have to consider that's not including DLC or anything along those lines. This would be the base game if this does actually end up being the size. But like I said, definitely take this with a grain of salt without a doubt, because there is no way to know for sure at this point in time if this is accurate or if this was a mistake made by Xbox and the Xbox team when it comes to the marketplace for Sparking Zero. But say this game does end up being this big, what do you think this game possibly could hold if the actual size was 78 gigabytes pretty much? Let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comments. And again, remember, take this without a doubt with a grain of salt, because we have no way of proving or finding out at this moment in time whether or not this is actually true or if this was actually a mistake from the Xbox team. But with that being said, my boys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and as always, hope you have a good one. Peace, y'all.